As far as power scaling goes, Naruto is perhaps one of the most underestimated verses out there, with a lot of people still believing that those characters cap at planetary or star level, and I think that it's time to once again educate the masses on this. Before we begin, let's establish what material we will be using. We will obviously be using the primary canons, which includes the manga and the novels, which are all acknowledged as canonical. We will also be using secondary canons, such as the Boruto anime, certain Naruto movies, and the Storm series, as long as the information we're using doesn't blatantly contradict the manga. This is because each of those is canon to some capacity. Kudoichi has worked very closely with the Boruto anime, and the anime even has entire arcs that have been adapted into the manga canon, with multiple references to them in the manga itself. The Last and the Boruto movie are canonical as well, as they are written directly by Kishimoto, and although the timeline is a bit messy, the Naruto movies have been referenced in canon before. The Boat Prison movie has been directly referenced in both canonical novels and secondary canons such as the Boruto anime. The Road to Ninja movie is also directly scripted by Kishimoto, with him checking and approving the entire storyboard and drawing a manga chapter that leads into the movie. Beyond that, the Road to Ninja movie is directly stated to also be tied up to the anime adaptation, which means it's also anime canon at the very least, and we even have an episode from the anime that directly leads into the movie, much like with the manga. And finally, Storm has a lot of involvement from Kishimoto. Kishimoto provides ideas and stories in Storm, and even the adventure mode is stated to be faithful to the manga. The stories from Storm Evolution are written directly by Kishimoto and are said to be the official part of Naruto's story. The cutscenes from Storm Generation are also stated to be canonical. Even the director of the Naruto anime has worked very closely with Storm, and jutsus and combos attacks in Storm are also directly approved by Kishimoto and represent what the characters would be capable of doing in a what if scenario where they're still around and work together. And thus, they are a canonical representation of the power and abilities of the characters, with the devs also saying that they are putting emphasis on the original story with movesets. Lastly, we will be using some bonus material from other video games, although the scales using those will be mostly for fun. We'll be starting with Sharingan based feats, as weird as this sounds. The Sharingan is way more than just an eye that creates illusions. The Sharingan in reality utilizes shadow release, which can be used to create things from nothing. This is seen with the Izanagi, which is a genjutsu that rewrites reality itself and is said to be an application of Hagoromo's jutsu to create things out of energy. Thus, in Naruto, genjutsu can create real physical things and isn't limited to just making illusions. This is seen with Obito, who using the Sharingan created the Kamui dimension. In Road to Ninja, he also uses the limited Tsukuyomi to create a parallel universe that mirrors the main one based on the desires of its target. That universe showing a starry sky. In the movie, it's acknowledged that this wasn't a genjutsu and that they were actually teleported to another universe via space-time ninjutsu. In fact, Naruto and Sakura even retained their battle damage after exiting this world, proving that it was all real. This is easily a universal plus feat. The regular Tsukuyomi too is used to create space-time continuums contrary to popular belief. Itachi has on many instances referred to the world he creates as space-times. Beyond that, Nanashi has used the Tsukuyomi to teleport people to a world she created. Well, this was initially viewed as a genjutsu world used for them to play video games. They later discovered that this was all a lie and a cover-up, and that their minds have actually been secretly teleported to another space-time using summoning jutsu, which is a teleportation jutsu. It's also directly stated within the game that this requires there to be actual space for their minds to be teleported into, and then it's mentioned that she must have used the Tsukuyomi, which is a jutsu used to create space and bring your enemies into it. This is backed up by the Itachi Shinden novel, where upon dying in the Tsukuyomi world, Izumi dies in the real world too. In the Naruto Date books, it's also stated that Itachi's spacetime is infinite, and thus he created an infinite spacetime continuum, and this would be a universal plus feat. In Storm Connections, Nanachi has also created her own world, and although there is nothing indicating that it's on the same level as Itachi's, we do know that it contains both a planet and a star and a space-time continuum large enough to contain them. As a post-parenting message, I actually realized that we see starry skies in Nanashi's dimension multiple times, which would make it at the very least multi-solar system level in size. For the final feats in the Sharingan category, we have the Infinite Tsukuyomi. This is a complete version of the Limited Tsukuyomi and is as well as direct upgrade to the regular Tsukuyomi. Since we have concluded that both of those jutsu create actual physical space, we can conclude that the infant Tsukuyomi also creates actual space and transports the minds of its targets to those worlds it creates, similar to how Nanashi used the jutsu. Since each target gets its own parallel world based on their desires, that means that there is a parallel universe for pretty much every single target of the infinite Tsukuyomi. With the infinite Tsukuyomi working on a worldwide scale and it affecting both humans and animals alike, we can comfortably say that it creates an entire multiverse. This jutsu has been used twice, by Madara during the war and by Kaguya after she ate the chakra fruit. Both of those feats would be multiversal. Another feat I want to briefly mention is the fact that there was a certain chakra on Earth that was shown to be so dense that it was causing cracks in the space-time continuum. Not only do we see that it was cracking the space-time surrounding the moon, which is over 300,000 kilometers away from Earth, but we even have Momoshiki and Kinshiki who were never near Earth until Arashiki showed them the planet, noticed that the space-time in the main universe was being torn apart, which implies that this was possibly a universe-wide phenomenon. This chakra was later revealed to be Kurama's, and for something to have enough density to outright cause cracks in spacetime is an insane feat, especially if it stretches so far away. Since the effect extended at least to the moon, we can say that this is at the very least a solar system level feat, given the fact that even things like supernovas and gamma burst rays are nowhere near enough to cause cracks in spacetime 300,000 kilometers away. But assuming that this was a universe-wide phenomenon, this would easily be universal and possibly universal plus. Moving on to the Suzuki category feats, starting with Kaguya, we have the fact that she can write reality on a beyond universal scale using Kame no Minaka. This jutsu is described in the manga as rewriting reality itself and summoning other dimensions, and is described in the Ninja Dictionary and the fourth data book as Kaguya physically moving and dislocating dimensions in order to swap their places. And in Naruto Blazing, it's also described as moving all of space. Essentially, Kaguya is playing the shell game with literal dimensions. She can write reality and dislocate dimensions and in turn swap their positioning. This would easily be a wall multiversal feat, as this is accomplished by her writing reality on a high enough level to target and switch to separate dimensions. Not only did she move her own dimensions, but she also did it on Earth, which means that she can also rewrite and move the entire Naruto universe. As far as Kaguya's dimensions go, they are consistently referred to as parallel worlds, alternate spacetimes, on top of them being referred to as Ikukan, which in Naruto is synonymous with the word Isekai. Isekai is a word that specifically refers to parallel universes. Her dimensions are shown to be containing stars in both the manga and anime, and in Storm 4 and Storm Connections, we see that in both the story mode and her ultimate jutsu, there is a starry sky and nebulous in the background of her dimension. In the manga and anime, Obito also notes that her dimensions are so vast that he could hardly use Kamui consecutively in them, bleeding out of his eyes after just 3 uses of Kamui and turning out of chakra after 5 uses. In contrast, Obito had absolutely no issues spamming Kamui to enter and exit the main Naruto universe, which suggests that Kaguya's dimensions are even vaster than the actual universe itself. So at this point it actually takes more to say that her dimensions aren't actually universes. Since Kaguya is also said to have created her dimensions, then the creation of each dimension would qualify for a universal plus feat at the very least. Beyond that, using her expansive touch-seeking orb, Kaguya is said to be able to destroy and recreate her whole space in the anime, manga, and data book. This would be a low multiversal feat, given the fact that Kaguya is essentially performing a double universal plus feat with her attack. The first being to destroy the parallel universe, and the second being to recreate it using the same attack. According to the magazine for Storm, the power to destroy the world is specifically coming from the Ten Tails itself, which means that even if you believe that she was boosted significantly by the Shinobi Alliance, at the very least the destruction part of the feat is contributed purely to the power of the Ten Tails, thus meaning that the Ten Tails is providing universal plus levels of power. This is consistent with the fact that the power of Seven-Tailed Beasts was used to create a parallel universe. Although from a different game, we do have the feat of Kaguya destroying an entire world using her expansive Truth-Seeking Orb in Shinobi Collection. This feat can be interpreted in two different ways. We see her activate the ETSO in the main Naruto universe, and then the screen shatters and everything goes to red. You can interpret this as either Kaguya destroying the main Naruto universe, which would be Universal Plus, or her outright destroying the game itself, which contains the entire Naruto cosmology, including all the parallel universes, the subspace also, which is a higher dimension that exists beyond space-time and is said to ignore the concept of space and distance, thus putting her at WoW complex multiversal. But believe it or not, the Naruto manga also has a 5-dimensional feat for her. In the Ninja Dictionary and for the data book, it is said that Kaguya has created her dimensions and moves them around as she pleases. Beyond that, we've established that Kaguya rewrites and relocates her whole dimensions using Amenominaka, with the guidebook specifically mentioning that her dimensions include ice, magma, desert, and gravity dimensions. Except there is one small issue. In both of those guidebooks in the raw Japanese, the gravity dimension is actually referred to as a supergravity dimension. Supergravity is a modern theory combining general relativity and supersymmetry, and in supersymmetry, the simplest form of supergravity has 4 spatial dimensions and often goes way up to 11 spatial dimensions. This means that Kaguya's dimension has at least 4 spatial dimensions, and it also has time, essentially making it a 5-dimensional space. Since Kaguya is capable of rewriting and moving that whole dimensions on top of having created it, this would easily make her whole complex multiversal. Moving on to Boruto, we have the fact that Momoshiki has also created his own dimension in both the anime and the novel, which is shown and said to contain stars. This dimension also has entire civilizations on its planets, which implies that it must be extremely large given how rare life is in the universe. This dimension is on many instances also referred to as a parallel world and an alternate dimensions. Momoshiki's dimension is also directly referred to as an isekai on multiple instances, which in Japanese directly refers to a parallel universe that mirrors our universe. Thus, we can confidently say that Momoshiki would be Universal Plus for creating that dimension. Following that, we have Ishiki, who has some feats that nobody ever seems to talk about. In the anime, it's revealed that after his battle with Naruto and Sasuke, Jigen moved and dislocated his dimension to prevent Sasuke from entering it. And this version of Jigen had less than 10% chakra too and was heavily weakened. The current dimension has a planet and a star at the very least, but much like Kaguya's dimension is also referred to as a Nikukan, which is synonymous in Naruto with the word isekai, and thus this would make Jigen moving his dimension a Universal Plus feat. Moving on to the fight against Koji, it's stated in 3 different promotional materials for the manga that the fight between Jigen and Koji shook the entire dimension, with it resulting in tremors that could be felt all the way in Konoha, which is a different universe. This means that Koji and Rick and Jigen shook not only the entire Kara dimension, but their power also went beyond it and shook the main Naruto universe. This would easily be a multi-source system level feat at the very least. And lastly, for this character, Koji directly states that Ishiki is capable of destroying the entire space if he uses his power recklessly, implying that Ishiki can destroy the entire Kara dimension, which would be Universal Plus. Moving on to our final Otsutsuki, we have Shibai. After continuously evolving, Shibai is outright stated to have ascended to a higher dimension where a physical body is not required. It's implied that nobody has ever reached this level yet, and even Nishiki, who scales above Kaguya and is said to be the strongest enemy they've ever fought, has not reached this level yet. There are a lot of different interpretations on where this would put Shibai in terms of dimensionality, so let's break it down. It's very clear that this is in reference to a dimension greater than one with 3 spatial dimensions, since the main cast literally lives in such a dimension. We also know that it has to be a dimension with more than 4 spatial dimensions, since Kaguya has quite literally created and chilled in the supergravity dimension. As we've noted, the subspace in Naruto exists outside of space-time and transcends the concept of space and distance. Every single space-time jutsu or teleportation ninjutsu travels between dimensions by utilizing that same subspace, including Kaguya's teleportation that chooses to travel through her dimensions. This means that the subspace exists on an even higher plane than Kaguya's supergravity dimension, thus making it a dimension with at least 5 spatial dimensions and 1 temporal dimension, or in other words a 6-dimensional plane. And this is a space that Kaguya quite literally enters when she goes through her portals, and even Minato is said to be traveling inside the subspace when using teleportation. Since the dimension that Shibai has ascended to is a realm that nobody has ever reached, this means that it has to be at least 1 dimension above the subspace, making it a 7-dimensional plane of existence. Although probably not canon, it's noteworthy that in Samurai 8 Chapter 0 we see that Naruto is capable of summoning the entire Samurai 8 series. Samurai 8 contains many different universes and infinities, and Fudumio's dimension, which is said to transcend space and time and is a higher plane of existence. Since teleportation jutsu and summoning jutsu work by using your chakra to relocate something, that means that Naruto is essentially relocating an entire 5-dimensional construct. And again, while probably not canon, it's made by the same people that made the Naruto manga, so it's not a stretch to say that Naruto is on this level, considering he has relativity to Kaguya and Momoshiki and all the others. You can take this one with a grain of salt. Moving down from higher dimensional scaling, I do want to talk about characters who have officially surpassed Kaguya's expansive truth-seeking orb, as some people seem to believe that nobody scales to this move. Firstly, Baron Mode Naruto is said to have emitted levels of chakra that were never seen before. This means that the power of Baron Mode Naruto, while just standing around and not using any ninjutsu, or even taijutsu for that matter, is greater than that of Kaguya's expansive truth-seeking orb, which by the time of the manga is already stated to be strong enough to destroy and recreate the entire world. Beyond that, in Storm 4 it stated that a combo attack from Naruto and Sasuke during the last era is the strongest ninjutsu power in history, putting it above Kaguya's ETSO. And remember that combo attacks in Storm are meant to be canonical representations of what the characters can do, and thus if they're meant to surpass Kaguya's ETSO, that would in fact be canon. And funnily enough, this is also a base from Naruto, he doesn't use Kurama mode or Sage mode here, so there is that too. And another instance of an attack that directly surpasses Kaguya's ETSO is Naruto, Hashirama and Ashura's combo attack, which is said to be the strongest combo attack ever in history, which would put it above Naruto and Sasuke's combo attack, which on its own regard is above Kaguya's ETSO. So once again a canonical representation of the power. Now that we are past the cosmic scale feats, I do want to dedicate the end of the video to the smaller scale feats. Now, I do want to mention that none of this is a limitation to the characters' power, this is simply a bonus to further establish consistency. Some of these are feats you probably know, but some are most likely feats that you've never heard of. In Naruto Mobile, a white mask Obito is able to set the moon on fire and cut it in pieces. This would easily be a moon level feat. In Shinobi Collection, Tobirama kicks the dude into the sun so hard that it causes the sun to explode, which would easily be a star level feat. In the same game, Basically is also capable of kicking a dude into the sun so hard that it causes a massive explosion on the surface of the sun, which would easily be large planetary. Kaguramu creating the moon and hurling it very casually into space would also be at the very least moon level and can be calculated all the way to planetary. The same applies to Naruto and Sasuke, who are said to have created a moon which, while still growing, was said to be as big as our moon. And similarly, they hurled it into space. This would easily once again be moon level for the creation, and likely planet level for the hurling such a mass into space at high speeds. In the last, the Teisengan is able to move the moon and to overcome its orbital momentum, and this would easily be a moon level feat. Beyond that, the Teisengan was able to move the moon with such force that it stated that if the moon does hit the Earth, it would destroy not just humanity but also the entire planet. On top of it being stated that it would create a new planet afterwards and survive the collision. Now, since the moon falling on Earth naturally is nowhere near enough to overcome Earth's gravitational binding energy or vaporize it, this means that the Teisengan's power is what amplified the impact to a high enough level to destroy the planet, thus making it a planetary feat. Base Naruto and Hinata were also able to overpower the Teisengan despite it using its chakra to protect itself, which would be another planetary feat. Toneri is also shown to be able to cut the moon in half with enough force to send its pieces flying at high speed, and even the novel states that the fissure was large enough to be seen by the naked eye from Earth. So this is not an animation mistake, this is another easy moon level feat. Toneri also directly states that he is capable of destroying the Earth with his attacks, and this is consistent with the Teisengan being able to produce an impact that can destroy the planet, so this is easily a planetary statement. And finally, we have the fact that using the chakra of several no-name shinobi from the Cloud Village, they are able to destroy the moon itself and teleport its debris to another spacetime. Since shinobi are stated to have gotten weaker generally, this means that those shinobi from the last period who live in peace should be weaker than the one from during the war arc. This would scale to the tailed beasts, as tailed beasts have chakra equal to thousands of shinobi. In fact, this is seen with 50% of Kurama during the war, who managed to amplify the chakra of the entire shinobi alliance by more than a factor of 3. And keep in mind that the chakra of a few dozen shinobi is capable of not only destroying the moon, but also teleporting such a massive mass away from Earth. Even ignoring the immense amount of energy required to teleport the moon away, this is still at the very least moon level for destroying it. By the way, this would also scale to Akatsuki level characters who are capable of fighting off tailed beasts and are said to be equal to thousands of shinobi in terms of power. This is consistent with even no Sharingan Sasuke at the start of Shippuden being able to solo whole armies. And finally, we do have a nameless Otsutsuki casually crushing a planet and sending its debris flying at high speed, which is easily at least a planetary feat. But again, none of those feats are limitations, they are just extra skills you can use, which do not contradict the existence of higher level feats.